Good morning and welcome to Better Thyself segment of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. When human beings face a question of survival, at that time majority of the people think that creativity is not essential or they think it's impossible to attain because of the adverse circumstances. They forget that this is a period when creativity in all its forms is not only imperative, necessary, but also a powerful tool to come out of the adverse situation. It's something which we ignore at our own peril. Creativity is everywhere. Let's not forget it. Sure, sometimes the muse comes to bless us with a flash, and that feels like a divine inspiration. But for normal human beings, whether you are writing an algorithm, book, painting a house, cooking food, or doing anything, preparing a business plan, you require creativity and that requires discipline. But above all, that requires courage to do something. People lack courage, and when they lack courage, they cannot be creative. You need courage to create. And courage does not mean fighting an adversary. Sometimes courage can be as simple as taking a couple of hours away in the middle of your workday to plant a garden. It can be very mundane, but any break from the routine can be an act of courage. And creativity can be applied to everything, come from complex ideas about infinity to clearing bureaucratic clutter to give people space to think, innovate, and grow. Moreover, creativity is demanded for purely systemic change. We always talk that we are troubled by systemic issues and we don't want to change it. Basically, you need a change and evolution of humanity is an act of a continuous change by nature. So you cannot achieve your highest ideal unless you change. And change is abhorrent to man as an average human being. They don't like change. It's unnerving. There's a fear of the unknown. So, since they don't want change, they lack the courage. And since they lack the courage, they are not creative. Through the prism of the courage to create, mixed with the reality of human thought, the process of having courage to create something has basically five components. First is encounters in a shared language. Secondly, well designed plans that clearly establish limits, as I said earlier, until you have parameters fixed up, until you have established the boundaries, the limits, you cannot really do something. Then acceptance of and struggle against the limit. Once you set up a limit, and then you have to cross it. That is a test of your courage and your creativity, how to cross that limit. Continuous transformation of imagination into form. And most important is a compelling shared narrative that continuously fuels the process. As I said earlier, if change is permanent, so is creativity, eternal, and so is a process. And the process, once it comes to a stop, stops you from being creative. So you first have to define creative courage and then explore the core components I have talked about. The courage to create illuminates a framework for thinking about creative courage. While the role of courage required by the artist engaged in the creative process, the same approach applies absolutely perfectly to business challenges faced by the companies, to the office worker, to even a manual worker, to a clerk, to a shopkeeper, name it. But the creative process is always there because you have to stay in touch with your own creativity in a very chaotic world. Unless you can bring order out of chaos, you cannot be creative. Now, new ideas can amplify, enhance, or topple established systems. And how to do it? The moment they come face to face with reality, the old established systems perceive a change. So there's a chance of either enhancing them, modifying them, or toppling them. And this can be very challenging for the people who have successfully established those systems. This, this is true in larger companies, but it's also true in your human life. Our brains are amazing in lots of ways. How, after being lazy and looking to conserve energy, a lot many people look for ways of survival. And masterful creativity is a struggle to give birth to something new, something more powerful that previously did not exist. For this reason, creativity requires courage. In fact, you are asking your brain to reach the highest state and you're coming out of the comfort zone, not just the comfortable place where you want to stay. Now, human beings normally want to stay where they are, but the moment they want to change, they want to come out of the cocoon of comfort. They want to leave the comfort zone behind. Then it's a question not only of survival, but facing real threats. And those threats, when faced with courage, make you creative. Now, creativity, as I said earlier, is not painting a picture or writing a book. No, it's your everyday life you have to be creative. How to do something in a better way, or to perform your job in a more innovative manner, that's creativity. And creativity has the power to cause anxiety. That's the biggest thing. And that dismantles old way of being and doing. Established modes. As the parents, mostly I've heard Indian parents say, we used to do like that, our parents used to do like that. No, that has got to change. And you need courage to do that. Encounter is at the core of every creative art, an encounter with yourself, with your ideas, with your thoughts, with your family structure, with the established society. And after a year plus of absent encounters with many people, this muscle atrophies. It goes practically numb. So you need to give yourself space to ease back into ebb and flow of your life again. And that can be either at work or at play. But we need to play life. One of the main tenets of imagination is return to that place where we were before we started impinging on ourselves the need not to change. So there is no shame you should realize in rekindling the passions you had as a child, as they always say. Awaken the child within you, the feeling of awe, the feeling of wonder, the question how, why, where. These are the questions that prompt you to have courage as well as to create. And you can understand that the artificial hierarchy of social life creates an illusion of what you think you are. It's an illusion, absolutely. And you want to see yourself as others see you. So there is a camouflage, there is a burqa around your real society self. Every encounter that you have with life, with your work, with your social life, with your working, or anywhere, should be infused with your authentic spirit. And social courage is also required. There are two levels of courage. One is your personal courage, then is the social courage. The courage to relate to the other human beings, the capacity to risk yourself, is the courage to invest yourself over a period of time in a relationship that will demand an increasing openness. Social courage requires confrontation, and courage confrontation is confrontation of fear. When confronted, the participants develops an awareness, and that grows not only by being yourself, but in participation of the social life. So you are immersed in the social life and yet retain your ideals and identity and entity. So it's a two level of play. So practice this idea gives up control. So you don't have to give up the control. You need a clear sighted path to the value of true inclusion. What majority of the people do is they abandon some of their previously successful ways of working to meet the demands of future and shape new systems. And that is real creativity. They will be required to develop new skills. That's creativity. One of the best ways to tell if you have the social courage is to take note of how you react the moment you feel threatened or you feel challenged. You, do you maintain your poise or do you lose it? Allow yourself to learn and revisit a conversation, revisit an idea, and change once you have the time to look over your own reaction. Then there's a strategy to execution. A future vision has to be hatched in the imagination and must be continuously not remain a dream, but transmuted into a tangible form. Creative masters continuously execute, knowing that what they produce on any given day, at any given moment, might be mediocre to what they can produce tomorrow. And that's why somebody asked a great artist, which is your masterpiece? He said, I have yet to do it. By giving yourself room to play, to relax, to experience life, will enable you to get over the mediocre and do something remarkable. Let the ideas come the way they do in the shower or on a walk. The process of developing a collaborative culture of creative courage has, as I said, five components more. Let me again emphasize. You have to develop a strategy to execution. You have to have well designed plans. You cannot do until, as I said earlier, continuously transform your imagination into a concrete way. A choice always confronts you. Shall you, as you feel your foundations shaking, withdraw in anxiety or panic? Frightened by the loss of the familiar mooring place, shall you become paralyzed? Shall you become inactive and become apathetic? If you are that, then you don't have the courage to do it. So tell yourself, most important, tell yourself that you're trying to accomplish and be clear about that. You need to speak to yourself directly, clearly, without any ambiguity. You have to ensure yourself that you are separate from the normal people. You are at, as I said earlier, two levels. One is at the social level where you mingle with others as them. And then you have your identity which sets you apart. The moment you can run this double life, you will be creative. Because you'll be able to wrestle with and counter until meaningful result emerges. It's important to remember that emergence of a butterfly is always when it leaves the cocoon. As long as it's in cocoon, it's not a butterfly. It's something bad to look at. It's important to learn that your experience would ultimately, even if you fail, bring a better future. So well-designed plans would establish your limits. Articulated limits are the key boundaries, and they are not the end. They are in fact the beginning of the creativity. When I say set parameters, I do not mean parameters which bind, but parameters which you have got to cross. And you have got to do that without any shadow of doubt. If you cannot do it, you are a failure. So competing priorities and limitations, passion infinite, time finite. So clarifying competing priorities to chart a path, step forward is a necessary action. Then you've got to also see that your articulation of the limits does not inhibit the limits to your thought and counter your thoughts with higher values because only then you will be able to struggle against them. Those limits are meant to be explored and even shattered. And this process is a really creative process. Then, as I said earlier, it's a continuous transformation of imagination into form. Parents, I've seen most majority of parents always tell the children, don't dream. But until you dream, how can you be creative? So you need creative courage to discover new forms, new symbols, new patterns, a new way of living, a new way of thinking. And that will make you creative. In our day, technology, engineering, diplomacy, business, teaching, all the professions are in the midst of a radical change. So become a part of the change. The need for creative courage is in direct proportion to the degree of change that you can bring around. So new vision has to be communicated in a way so that people won't reject it outright. You make it relevant to them, not from your perspective, but from their. You see, your creativity has to be relevant from at two levels. One to yourself, if you're authentic, and then to the social order. If it's not relevant to the social order, then it's not really creative. As I say, there's a very thin line between genius and a madman. A madman is a genius. The only thing is he has not been able to involve others ultimately. You've got to see that the people benefit from the ideas. They will not accept it in the beginning, but the possibility and the probabilities of acceptance should be there. So, what that needs is a compelling narrative that continuously fuels the process. This narrative emerges out of your capacity to think. Creativity is difficult in part because it's not easy to clear away the dead forms. Let's be very clear. It's a tough job. On the top of that, the clear forms need to be replaced with the tangible evidence of what will replace them. So continuously you've got to keep on winnowing, the process of winnowing, weeding out. Then if you keep a garden, you need to take the weeds out. It's a continuous process. You let them go and the weeds will grow and your flowers would be overpowered by the weeds. So even when a narrative is beautiful, articulated, communicated, and even when it promises a better future, it will cause anxiety in yourself and in your circle if it's not understood how it's relevant. So, genuine creativity is characterized by an intensity of awareness, a heightened consciousness. In complete absorption and flow comes an increased capacity for problem solving. And any problem solved is a creative process. That's exactly what I'm saying. Every action of yours is creative. The humanity's highest calling, the realization of imagination into a more perfect world, is creative. But what you need is to have the courage to be creative. And if you have the courage, what the proverb says, world is your oyster. So what are you waiting for? Pick up your cuddles, pick up your courage. Go ahead, be creative with the courage that you have, with the capability that you have, and each one of you is capable in your own way. So exploit it to the maximum. Have the courage to be creative, and the world is yours for taking. Thank you.